Welcome to the Dojotalkpodcast. Please remove them shoes before entry.
Sam Master is here, and you still have not taken off your shoes.
Yeah. Living every day to define man's mission. Look into the sky for divine transmission. Deaf man's vision makes the blind man listen. Eyes on the prize, this is blind ambition. Thank you.
Yo, what's going on, world? Welcome to another edition of the Dojo Talk Podcast. I am your host, Serial Sensei. We're on episode number 85. Just recorded episode 84 about 2 hours ago. So for my fight fans, if you're listening to this, that podcast should be up. We covered the Invicta card this past weekend, headlined by Sarah Kaufman. We covered Bellator, the Frank Mir Fedor card. We covered the Triple G fight. We talked about Ryzen. Everything. We talked about. We got a lot covered. It's been a little bit since we last recorded, but we back in full swing. So more episodes coming. I wanted to get this episode out earlier, but as always, so much music to review. It took a while to catch up on everything, but I'm here, man. We're back with another episode. Got some music reviews, movie review also on deck. But before I get into it, got to get my plugs out. As always, this podcast can be listened to on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes. If you're on iTunes, please rate, subscribe, and definitely leave a review. Greatly appreciate it. You can also check us out on Google Play. You can send questions to dojotalkpodcast@yahoo.com. You can hit us up on Facebook at the Dojo Talk Podcast Facebook page. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can hit me up at Serial Sensei. So yeah, I think it's been 9 days, according to SoundCloud, since we last dropped the episode, which in reality isn't that long, but I'm actually just so used to us dropping. We drop pretty frequently, I would say. Not to brag, but I think we do a good job on the show. We put out content pretty frequently. So 9 days without anything from this podcast, it feels like a bit of a stretch, even though it isn't. But I mean, it's been for good reason, man. This podcast game is a bit more work than you would think it would be. You gotta edit. You gotta research to make sure you know what you're talking about. Can't just come up here lollygagging. So gotta research the fights that we cover. Gotta listen to the music that I review. So I've been just really working, and then aside from the podcast game, I've been working on my book, which I finally finished. So the Oddball Chronicles will be a real thing, but finishing the book, or at least the writing portion, is not the end of the battle. I still have to figure out cover art and marketing, some kind of promo, because I'm doing this all by myself. I don't, I ain't famous out here yet, so I'm kind of figuring this all out as I go. But I'm actually going to reread the book to myself today, make sure it's nice, spiffy, all that good stuff. And then I'll figure out what the next step in that process is. But that's been fun, man. It's been a journey working on this book, about 4 or 5 years in the making. But I'm getting close to the ending stages. Hopefully, I'll be able to put this out by the end of the year. I've been saying that every year for the last 5 years, but now it really feels like it's about to be a real thing. So that's dope, man. I've been working on that throughout the week. Yeah, that's kind of why I haven't been recording. Just even when I'm not recording, I'm working on recording. I'm just not actually recording. So yeah, man, that's kind of been the week. Just really tired from work. But when I come home, I gotta work on on this creative side of things I do. Been definitely keeping in the loop with my anime. Well, really only two in particular. My Hero Academia and Megalobox, which I will continue to recommend every week until those episodes just stop running. Both new episodes 5 of both shows came out. I think over this last week. I watched them yesterday. My Hero Academia is just always fire. I ain't gonna spoil the episode to anybody who hasn't watched it yet, but shout outs to the little homie who tried to use the gun in that episode. Caught that work. Megalobox, man. Megalobox is finally getting real. I'm liking how this story is developing with Joe, and his trainer, and now we're getting a look into the trainer's past with this new guy that they're about to fight. I can't remember his name. Is it Aragaki or something like that? This guy that he's cleaning Joe up already. The fight just started, and then the episode ended. So really looking forward to see how that episode goes. But that's another dope show, man. Definitely give that show a look, man, if you want to watch a nice boxing anime. But yeah, between My Hero Academia and Megalobox, my anime fix has been great. It's been awesome. Thoroughly enjoying both of these shows. So yeah, man, that's pretty much it. I don't want to keep you guys here forever with my random ramblings. So we're just going to jump into this episode because I feel like this is going to be a long one. I don't intend it on but I feel like this one might stretch out a little longer than I would hope. But, it's a lot to dive into. So we're going to do some album reviews, movie reviews, and, of course, the recommendation at the end. So let me throw a disclaimer out. Well, let me just say this. So album reviews, man, we're going to do J. Cole's KOD, Fly Anakin and Ohbliv's Backyard Boogie. And at the end of those two reviews, after that, I will be doing my review of Infinity Wars. So I'm going to do the Infinity Wars part last, and I'm going to let you guys know now that spoilers are coming. If you haven't seen it yet, oh well, you're going to have to skip through that whole section, because I've been holding my tongue talking about this for a while, but I really want to talk about this. So if you have not seen Infinity Wars, you might want to skip the last section of this podcast and just skip forward until when I start the recommendation. Or actually, you know what? I might just do my recommendation before I do the review, so that you guys can hear all that, so you don't got to worry about which point to skip and all that good stuff. So I'll go a little out of order. I'll do my 2 album reviews, my recommendation, which is actually also an album, and then I'll save Infinity Wars for last, just to be nice, so you guys don't hear any spoilers that you do not care to hear. So yeah, so let's just get into it. First album on deck, J. Cole with KOD. I'm not gonna go into J. Cole's background. You know who J. Cole is, and if you don't, whatever. this podcast probably just isn't for you anyway. J. Cole, man, we haven't heard from him since For Your Eyes Only. I had a suspicion he would drop a project this year, just because I feel like everybody else has been dropping, so why not get a J. Cole project? Kind of just sprung it on us out of nowhere, which I think that's kind of how he did For Your Eyes Only. I don't think that one had, actually no, that one did have like a documentary and stuff. But anywho, KOD just kind of randomly gets announced. He's doing like the listening party where nobody can bring their cell phone, builds up hype for like 2 days, and then it just, boom, here we go. So, where do I start with this album? Well, let me say this. My history with J. Cole, it's been ups and downs. I really like J. Cole, like straight out the gate with like the warm-up mixtape. There was the warm-up, come up, Friday Night Lights, which was a really good mixtape. Am I missing one? I feel like there was something else he did after Friday Night Lights. Whatever mixtape that was that had losing my balance on it. I can't even remember if that was that on Friday Night Lights? But anywho, I say that to say J. Cole's earlier tapes, I was definitely a pretty big fan of. Actually, no, Losing My Balance was the warm up. But yeah, I say that to say that his earlier works, I was a fan of. Really liked him when he first came out. His albums, for me, to be honest, I haven't listened to all of them, to keep it a buck. Some of his projects and things I've heard from him, like I'll like his albums, but like not enough to really go back to them. Like for the time I'm listening to it, I'll enjoy it, and then when it's over, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that's it. But like I don't really find myself going back to visit his albums or his projects all that much. Like I'll probably go back and listen to his old mixtapes more than I do his recent works as of late. And I actually liked For Your Eyes Only. But even with that, like, I bought that album. Honestly, like, after the first couple of times I listened to it, I don't think I really revisited that album all that much. That's kind of like my history with J. Cole. Like, he's a good artist. He's a good rapper, but I just don't find myself going back to his works. And for me, like, replay value is a very big thing in terms of, like, artists and who I would label as a favorite and things like that. So if you don't have a lot of replay value, you kind of just, in this age of music, you just kind of get lost in the shuffle. There's so much music. So if you don't got replay value, man, I'm liable to kind of skip out on some of your stuff. But I wanted to give KOD a listen. And this album kind of, it somewhat falls in that same category. It's one of those albums that, like, I enjoyed it. Well, actually, you know what? Let me say this. This album is another prime example of why I don't review albums off of a first listen. Because I think had I reviewed this off of a first listen, I probably would not have had a lot of kind things to say. Like, it was kind of one ear and out the other the first time I listened to it. And then I sat with it a little bit more, and it's grown on me. It's still not the perfect album, but I was able to pick up on more things that I liked and appreciated that he did. But this album, I do think, still shows some of J. Cole's flaws. So I'll just get into the album. So KOD, which I believe, according to J. Cole, has three meanings. What is it? King overdose, kids on drugs, and killing our demons. And the way I did this review is I kind of broke down the songs in relation to those titles, because this isn't necessarily I wouldn't call this, I guess you could kind of call this a concept album. I don't know if I would call it a concept album, just more so there are underlying themes. I guess I tend to think of concept albums more so than like it tells like a cohesive story, which I don't know, I guess you could argue that this does. But I kind of think of it just like there are a lot of just underlying themes that are throughout this album. So I kind of broke the review down, placing songs in those three categories of King Overdose, Kids on Drugs, and Killing Our Demons. But first, before I get into that, just some quick shout outs on the production tip. I think J. Cole produced a lot of this album. The only other credits I found were BLVK Deputy T- and Childish Major, who I guess assisted on some of the production. Beat wise, this does sound a bit different from what I've heard J. Cole rap over. I don't think it's anything extraordinary, but at least for J. Cole, it's a different look. Some of these tracks are a bit more trappy, some of them a bit more upbeat. It almost seems like he was trying to, I don't want to use pander, but like he was trying to reach this new crowd of fans, like the younger generation. It kind of seemed like, with some of the production choices, definitely with his flow on some of these tracks, which I'll get into when I start talking about specifics. But I thought that was actually a good thing, that J. Cole been known to kind of be somewhat monotone, and I think on this album he did a decent job of switching up his flow on tracks, like trying to just make things interesting, given a different look than what he normally does. So I thought that was cool. It's still, tone-wise, sonically, I would say this album is kind of dreary. Like I said, there are moments where it gets upbeat, but I feel like it's kind of a dreary album. None of the beats, to me, like, they're okay, but nothing sticks out too much. It's just kind of, it's just like passable. It's just there. It's okay, but it's not anything to like lose your mind over. But like I said, I think he went with this sound to try to appeal to this new generation of fans, this younger generation, because I feel like he was definitely trying to reach them with this album in terms of the sound, trying to use, I guess, the sound of this album to draw them in, and then hit them with the content that he's trying to get them with, like the messages that he's trying to relay. But the production is, like I said, it's just okay. Like, it's just just cool. It's nothing. I think he should work with different producers. I think he's almost in like that Big Crit category for a while, where like, don't get me wrong, Crit can produce some really good tracks, but as we saw on his last album, when he started working with different producers and getting different sounds, like it took him to another level. And I feel like Cole's at that point where it's like, we get it, like, you're a good rapper, you can carry an album by yourself, but I think it would do you some good to just get some different looks from other producers, or even if it's not a lot of other producers, like maybe you just link up with a certain person, like you do kind of like a Prime situation with Royce and Primo, where it's just an MC and a rapper, and y'all link up and maybe y'all just create a sound, or you can find a producer that can craft a certain sound for you. I think that would do him some well, because a lot of these beats are, like I said, it has like, some of them are trappy, but it's still like that dreary sound. Nothing stands out, which is kind of a hindrance on this album. It's one of the reasons why it doesn't have a ton of replay value, because nothing pops out too much. It's just kind of there. So yeah, that's pretty much it on the production tip. Like I said, nothing too special to get riled up about. The beats are they're just cool. The meat and potatoes of this album are pretty much the content, and this is where the KOD meaning comes in. So let me break down how I have my notes how I decided to like go about reviewing this album. So like I said, KOD, the three meanings are King Overdosed, Kids on Drugs, and Killing Our Dreams. So the way I broke this down, and this is just my opinion, I'm not saying my word is the law. Anybody, we can hear this and think of it or feel it in different ways. This is just what I got when I listened to it. So I think all three meanings definitely play a part in the album. King Overdose to me represented themes of like overindulgence, whether that be to like drugs or alcohol, fame, any kind of just like unhealthy vices, and just overindulging, literally like just overdosing on those. So that's what I picked up from that meaning. Kids on Drugs is kind of what it implies. I think that these parts of the album are him kind of talking about this like current drug culture, especially from the younger generation, and how that affects them mostly in a negative way, and him kind of trying to offer alternatives to that. And it kind of ties into the overdose theme, because the drug culture also leads to overindulgence and bad decision making that can affect other areas of life. So I feel like those two themes are kind of connected, but there are definitely moments where he definitely literally like focuses on drugs and the effect of drugs. And then the third part, Killing Our Demons, those are the tracks on this album which I think are a bit more personal, where he talks about how kind of these things in terms of like drugs and all that have affected him personally. Like he has tracks on here where he talks about his stepmom, other tracks where he talks about, and I'll get into these in specific, but like other tracks where he mentions his friends who he's watching going through addiction, and he kind of wants to help them, his own demons that he's had to battle with drugs, and how it's affected him and his family. So that's kind of how I broke this album down, kind of into sections. So I'm not gonna go through every track. I'm just gonna mention ones that stood out to me and what I thought they represented in terms of the themes of this album. So like I said, I'm gonna go back to the top. So King Overdose, dealing with overindulgence, drugs, alcohol, fame, like I said, unhealthy vices, all that good stuff. So some of the tracks that I think fit in that theme in the context of this album, definitely Photograph. Photograph is, I want to say that's like the second track on here, the second or third track on the album, where it's literally about somebody like obsessing over a woman via social media, thirsting over Instagram pics, and he's talking about how like he wants her to follow back, and how certain pictures he keeps for himself he's not showing his friends, kind of like that whole thing. I don't, and I can say this about a lot of the songs on this album, actually a lot of the first half of this album. The ideas of the songs I think are cool, but like the execution of them is kind of hit or miss. Like I said, I appreciated Photograph just for like the idea of it, but I don't. The song itself, it was just okay. Like it was just cool. But but I wrote it down because, like I said, I thought it fit really well, at least within the theme of King Overdose, of like that's a type of unhealthy vice. You overdosing and over dependent on social media for certain things. So that's why I listed that track. ATM I also think fits into that overdose theme a lot, about just like money obsession, material obsession. I actually do like this song though. It's one of the more upbeat songs on here. It's kind of crazy how like right after this album made it out, I heard this song on like an NBA playoff commercial like a day after. So this song is definitely taken off. The video is actually pretty creative too. I'll probably leave a link in the description so you guys can check that out. But I like this track though. I like his flow on here. He was real. It was one of the tracks where J. Cole was a lot more upbeat. Like I said, a lot more upbeat, a lot more energetic. Switched his flow up normally from what we hear him here. Definitely had more of a kind of like that, that delivery that a lot of kind of like mainstream rappers do. So I thought he did a really good job of that. I mean, I like some of the lines on the song. On the line, proceed with caution. I heard if you chase it, only results in a hole in your heart. Fuck it, I take the whole cake. I won't leave a portion. It's only an organ. And that line's pretty much summing up like he's really to chase this money to the point where he doesn't really care like what it cost him. And to me, that's a perfect example of, like I said, overdose. Like that's overkill of you willing to chase this material thing so much and you not care that it's literally like costing you your life. Like you're not wasting time, but it's other constructive things you could be doing, but you're so focused on this money chase and you're not realizing the things that it's cost you and what you're giving up and sacrificing your morals just to chase the dollar. So I thought that track was really dope. I really did enjoy that one. Kevin's Heart, I put this in the overdose section because to me this represented like an overdose of like lust. I like how he used Kevin Hart's name, if you know his situation with his wife and all that. I ain't gonna get into it, but if you know, you know. So I like how he used his name metaphorically in the title, and it's kind of a track about him going through those hard decisions. That mind state of when he's about to creep, when he's about to cheat, and kind of like that internal battle. And I guess like he's been in this behavior so long but like it's so hard to kick that habit. So like I said, to me that represents part of the overdose of lust and thirsting to a higher degree. And the cost is you could be ruining your marriage or your relationship or whatever. So I really enjoyed that track. And not to sidetrack, but that's kind of the first half of this album I didn't enjoy much, aside from the track KOD, which I think I have listed later. But some of these other tracks, like I said, ideas were cool, but the songs themselves were just I like KOD. Photograph, I like the idea and the concept, but the song itself was just kind of The Cutoff was another song where I kind of liked the idea. The song was cool. ATM I like. Motivate was the album really picks up, at least for me, at Kevin's Heart. This was kind of when I started to get a little more interested. But I'll continue down. I'm pretty sure I'll mention a lot of these tracks later. So that's the King Overdose section of the album. And then we have Kids on Drugs, which I mentioned, songs that tackle like drug culture and things like that. So the songs I have listed under this section would be Friends. This was a song towards the latter half of the album that I definitely really enjoyed. J. Cole goes into a lot of detail about witnessing his close friends like struggle with addiction, and he's seeing all these things that he believes, I guess, causes them to turn to drugs to kind of like numb their pain. And he wants to help them find another way to like deal with their issues other than turning to drugs, because he knows it's just kind of ruining them, and it's just numbing them from reality. I don't know how I feel about his idea of curing it to just be meditate, because that was literally what he said at like the end of the verse. But I mean, all in all, like I try not to nitpick and hold that against him, but like I get the point of the song. Like he's hurt because he's watching his friends like destroy themselves, and he just wants to help them find another way to cope. So I guess I won't nitpick over you literally just telling them to meditate. But I wish he could have expanded a bit on, not a cure, but just his thoughts on other ways to deal with their issues. But like I said, I like the song. I really appreciate what he was trying to do with the song. I think that's a very important issue. And I put it in the kids on drug section because I think that's a track that could definitely relate to them, where we see it now, like drug culture it's kind of crazy. In the 90s, it was about drug dealing, and now this generation is drug using. Now we know where those drugs went. They went to the parents, and now the kids of those parents are getting hooked on them. It's kind of wild to see the cycle, but it's kind of the world we live in. So I thought that was a good way to express that thought. And like I said, I think that definitely ties into a lot of kids who are dealing with things like depression and anxiety and all these other issues that are going on, and a lot of them turn to drugs to deal with it. So I think that's something they could definitely relate to. I also put in the kids on drugs section, I'm not sure if this fits, but I threw it on there, 1985 Intro to the Fall Off. This is probably one of the best songs on the album. It's actually what closes the album out. A lot of people say this track is like a diss to Lil Pump. I don't listen to Lil Pump. I barely know who Lil Pump is, to be quite honest. So I can't really speak on all of that. I kind of took this track as him sitting the younger generation down. And it's a bit, it's kind of him poking jabs at them. It's almost kind of condescending. But I think that's just the competitive part of him, because apparently some of these young rappers have taken shots at them. So I think part of the song is letting them know, like, bro, I will give all y'all the blues in a second. But at the same time, he's also sitting them down. He's like, listen, man, we can beef back and forth. I would probably destroy you guys. So instead of doing that, man, let me tell you what's gonna happen if you stay on this trend that you're on. Like, you guys will be hot for 2 or 3 years, but if you don't grow up, if you don't really start being authentic and start seeking longevity in this game, you're gonna be out of here. Like, you'll be out of here in a couple years. Nobody's gonna remember you. Your music will fade away. It'll be like you never existed. Meanwhile, because I'm pretty true to myself, I have longevity. I'm gonna be here for a while. I'm gonna be making money, and y'all are gonna be on Love and Hip Hop somewhere. And that's pretty much the song. But I really liked it, though. He really definitely gave them a lot of true game about, how and why you should be authentic, because you want to stay in this game as long as you can. And he mentions, like, he wants to see, even the ones that diss him, like, he wants to see them succeed, money. But it's like, if y'all stay on the track you're on, like, you're going to be out of here really quick. We can go all day, man. Since, like, the start of the bling era of rappers who came out with, like, a hit or two, and where are they now? A lot of them they never stood the test of time. They had their 2 to 3 year run, and he's out of there. And they're gone. And we'll probably never hear from them again. He's letting them know that you'll be that. You think it can't be you, but it will be you. I also like the parts where he was throwing in how, he thinks they're impacting white fans in terms of their perception of, like, what it is to be black, and how a lot of America they want to see you being turned up. They want to see you out here being ignorant, and they think, like, that's cool, and that's how they perceive us. But, like, that's not all we are. And I just thought that was interesting that I didn't expect him to throw that tidbit in there. But I thought that was an interesting perspective of him, not only telling them how to have longevity, but like pay attention to how you're influencing people. You know, you might not think it's a big deal, but you know, you guys have fans. They're probably very young and impressionable, and you know, just be attentive of the kind of impression you might be leaving on them. So those are the tracks I had under the Kids on Drugs. I would think that represent that part of the album very well. And then our last section, we go to Killing Our Demons, which, like I said, deals with a lot of personal matters and how these issues seem to affect him personally. So the first track I have listed under this section is The Cutoff, where, like I said, the track was cool. It was okay. But like I said, a lot of the ideas I like on this album, so I wanted to list it. On The Cutoff, he literally just talks about like just getting rid of friends who have been using him for his own personal gain. He kind of has this idea of getting vengeance on them for one way or another, but he kind of comes to the conclusion that like, I shouldn't do that. I'm not judge and jury. That's, you know, his belief is that, you know, that's kind of God's work. I shouldn't be. It's not my job to seek vengeance. Karma will get them one way or another. I need to not worry about that. So that song was cool, so I wanted to give that a shout out. Once an Addict, which is another pretty powerful song towards the second half of this album. He goes really in depth into detail. He's talking about like his stepmom going through alcoholism and how like he kind of wanted to help her, but I guess in a way like it hurt him to see her like this, and at the same time he didn't like talking to her while she was going through all this, so he would kind of like brush her off to the side, but then he felt bad about it, you know, like that's his mom, he wanted to help her. So I thought that was a really good track, and like I said, really showing how these issues of drugs, it's not just about the younger culture, like this affects everybody, you know, even him and his family. So I thought that was really good. I really enjoyed that track. And I think the last track I have under the section of Killing Our Demons is Window Pane, where he kind of just takes time to reminisce on like how far he's come in this game, remembering like his come up and how a lot of the people he came up with, you know, either like didn't make it for one reason or another. He's trying to like help them out, but seems like they're just not willing to listen, or they're just kind of trapped. I think this is the same song, if I remember correctly, where he has the lines talking about some young girl he met and how like he wanted to give her a hug because she told him about like all the craziness that she went through at such a young age. But that track was cool. That's actually the last track that I have listed. So overall, I guess just to go back, like I said, the first half of this album, the intro, yeah, it's just the intro. KOD was good. Photograph was The Cutoff was okay. ATM was good. Motivate, Kevin Hart was dope. Oh, I did not mention, do I have it listed? I did not mention Brackets. Oh, I have that under my favorite track, so I'll get to that in a little bit. But from Kevin's Heart to the end of this album for me is when it really picked up, and I kind of wish the whole album leaned towards that side, because to me that's when it got a bit more interesting. I mean, like tracks like KOD and ATM were cool, but I think the problem with this album has moments. And then there are songs that are good, and then there are songs that are just like okay, and it's just like nothing stands out too much, and I think that's kind of just what holds me back from really enjoying this. Like I really like the idea of the album and what it represented, but the execution was just kind of like, it was kind of lackluster, I guess, and not to be harsh, but I feel like J. Cole's capable of more. But it fell flat just a little bit. And it's not to say, like I said, it's not to say that's a bad album. It's just I'm not sure if this is something I'm going to go back and really ingest and repeat to myself over and over. It's grown on me a little bit, and the few times I've gone back to listen to it. But to be honest, I can hear this getting lost in the shuffle eventually. But hey man, what do I know? J. Cole's got thousands and trillions of fans, so I'm pretty sure he's doing well from himself. From what I've seen, his core fans seem to love it. So, but that's just my perspective. So don't kill me in the comments. I know how y'all J. Cole fans be. Y'all be wildin' sometimes, but that's just kind of how I feel. Like I said, it's not a bad album. To me, it was just cool. There were some tracks I liked, and then some other tracks that were just okay, and then some tracks I kind of didn't care for. My favorite tracks, let me mention Brackets, because I did not even talk about that one. Brackets is probably my favorite track on here, where he goes into detail about literally the money he makes in his tax bracket, but how he doesn't, he's questioning where his tax money goes, because he's looking at, allegedly tax money goes to like fix schools and fix roads and, all that good stuff. But he's looking out at the world and he's like, I don't see this being fixed at all. Like, everything's still just as terrible as it was, from the start. So like, where is my tax money really going? And he mentions the idea of like, I should be able to control my tax money through like an app and pick like what I want to fund and all that good stuff, instead of it going to some random congressman who's never met me, who doesn't care about my community, so on and so forth. So I thought the idea in this track was really dope. So Brackets is definitely a good one. KOD was a favorite track. Like I said, I like how bouncy this track was. I kind of like how aggressive J. Cole was with the flow. Definitely more upbeat, not so lackadaisical, so it draws interest when you listen to it. Bars about him kind of addressing his critics, about people who telling him how he needs to have features, and he's like, nah, I really don't. So I thought that was good. Like I said, I like the aggressiveness and the bounciness of that track. Though I do think the only thing about that track that kind of threw me off, because the intro says intro to KOD, and then this track is called KOD. So I was assuming that this track would really kind of set the tone for what the album is about and maybe break down what KOD means, but it kind of doesn't. Like, he mentions KOD in the hook, but I don't feel like this track really embodies what KOD stands for. So I ain't gonna say he missed the mark, but I feel like it would have been a better setup for the album had he really delved into what KOD meant to him, or what he wanted it to mean to the fans and to the listeners. But like, either way, like I said, I wish he would have went that route, but either way, the track was good. Definitely bumps, like I said, really upbeat flow, so I enjoyed that for what it was. I have ATM on here. I listed that earlier. I mentioned that earlier. It's a favorite track. Like I said, another one that's a bit more bouncy. I love his flow on that track. Definitely more upbeat, something that I think would attract to younger listeners who I think they could get behind that flow. It's definitely like the way he was rapping. I think it caters more to the younger crowd. Friends, the favorite, and then last track I have as the favorite is 1985, Intro to the Fall Off, which pretty much is a favorite for the reasons I listed earlier about him just giving game to the younger generation. So, I mean, that's kind of KOD in a nutshell. Like, it's cool, but I don't know if I'm gonna go back to this a ton. Like, I don't know. I don't think this is. J. Cole's one of those dudes, I go out of my way and I'll listen to him, but then I just don't come back to the albums. I do think it's an interesting note, though, that the last track, Intro to the Fall Off, I want to believe, I guess the Fall Off will be another project. Not sure. I did hear, I think KOD is going to have a deluxe edition. So, I don't know. Maybe that'll have a few more songs that may string this album together more nicely. I'm not sure. But, like I said, KOD for me overall, it was okay. It was cool for a while I was listening to it. But eventually, it just kind of got lost in the mix. And I've kind of just been picking up other albums to listen to, and I haven't really came back to revisit this all that much. But I guess, like, if you're a hardcore J. Cole fan, they'll probably love this. So I'm pretty sure you guys will pull a lot more from it than I did. Like I said, I really like the ideas and what he was going for in terms of themes of this drug culture and him kind of like trying to reach the youth. And I felt like he tried to cater his style to reach them, but for me, it was just, this album reminded me of Ab-Soul's album. What was it called? Was it These Days? Was that it? Kind of reminded me of that album, where it seemed like he was kind of, I don't want to say mock the mainstream. He was kind of purposely using that sound to try to, like, I guess appeal to that crowd, but while delivering their own message. It kind of reminded me of that, but I kind of feel the same way about that album as I do with this, to where, like, it's just okay. Like, it doesn't, I like the idea, but personally for me, it just doesn't move me that much. But, you know, it is what it is. J. Cole, KOD. I'll leave links in the description for the music videos, which are pretty dope from what I've seen. I haven't watched the Kevin Hart's video yet, but the ATM video was pretty dope, very creative. So I'll leave a link to that below, and you guys can check that out. But J. Cole, KOD, give it a listen. On to the next track. Next album. Fly Anakin and Ohbliv with Backyard Boogie. I don't have a ton to say about these two because I'm not awfully familiar with them. I've heard of Ohbliv before. I have never heard of Fly Anakin. I guess shout outs to Big Stowe, one of the writers, I think editor for Dead End Hip Hop. Also follow him on Twitter. I want to say he was the one who posted this album, and I clicked on the link he posted. I was like, oh man, this is pretty, I'm glad I clicked on this. This was pretty dope. So I can't give a ton of background on these guys other than Fly Anakin is the MC, Ohbliv is the producer. I think both of these guys are from Richmond, Virginia. They are part of a collective called Mutant Academy, which houses, I want to say, MCs such as Concept Jackson, Big Kahuna OG, Henny L.O., is this Tuwami? Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Iwani, Foisey, Best Friend, Unlucky Bastards, Psycho Sid, and Grey Matter. So I guess check those guys out. I'll leave a link to the Bandcamp for this album so you guys can listen to some of the songs and check out their collection. But I'll just get right into this album because, like I said, I don't have a ton of background info on these guys. I was initially drawn to this album strictly because of the production. The production on this album was really just different, but awesome. Like, Ohbliv has this really, like, it's this real, like, vintage, jazzy, raw, like, lo-fi kind of sound. It reminds me of an artist you would hear on, like, Adult Swim, and I don't mean that as a jab. Like, you know, the kind of artist that Adult Swim tends to gravitate towards. I feel like this fits in that vein of, like, that kind of rap. I love how Ohbliv, he flips, like, these really old, not every single track, but he'll pick, like, these old, like, 80s, like, R&B samples that I feel like aren't even meant to be rapped over, and somehow Fly Anakin is flawlessly rapping over these beats like it's nothing. So I really enjoyed the sound of this album. It's a lot of, and with this style production, he can still manage to give you a lot of different vibes. You get tracks like Weed Man, which are just extra smooth for no reason. Love the like the 80s like R&B style beat on that track. So yeah, that was dope. Then you get tracks like where are my notes? Other tracks like Thug Bachata has this nice, like, I'm probably describing this wrong, but like this Caribbean, like, tropical bounce to it. Tracks like The Prototype, which is some straight, like, 90s just vintage head nodding hip hop. So Ohbliv on the production, man, I really, really enjoyed the production. It's like I said, it's this real lo-fi, jazzy, still you can nod your head to it. Sometimes it's kind of off kilter, it's a bit weird, but like he makes it work. And I love how, like, raw the production sounds. Like it doesn't sound like polished, and I don't mean that as a slight. Like some albums, like production, it just sounds like really clean, and to me this has a much rawer sound to it, and I really enjoyed that sound throughout this album. So that's kind of what carried this project for me. Not to say that Fly Anakin is whack or anything, but the production on this album really, really sold it for me. But I mean, on the lyrical tip, Fly Anakin, if I could describe his style, he kind of has like this really kind of like high pitched voice. So I'm not sure if that would bother someone one way or another. Didn't really bother me any. He's a very, I can't say he's a punchline rapper. He's a very consistent rapper. But I think the best thing I enjoyed about him on this album lyrically is, like I said, the way he flows over some of these beats. Some of these beats, like I said, they're like this old school like 80s R&B. Like, these are beats that I feel like people just shouldn't even rap over, and he's managing to just he's coasting over these beats, man. Like, he just gets into a pocket and dude just goes. In terms of content, there's nothing too crazy going on in terms of content. Like, it's not like a lot of concepts or themes or things that are flying over your head. I think this album is pretty straight to the point. I mean, he talks about things like, his come up in Richmond, VA. He definitely drills in your head, man. You're gonna know about Richmond by the end of this album. He's definitely putting on. So I mean, you get tales of, I'm pretty sure, of things like he saw coming up in Richmond, how that scene was, just the hustle and grind of just life and just trying to make it in the game in general. So like I said, I don't have a ton to really dive into, like, content wise. Dudes is just rapping, man. Like, that's all I can say. It's not to say that there aren't any clever lines or there isn't any kind of content here, but like I said, it's not anything overly like super complex. Dudes is just rapping, and sometimes that's just what I want to hear. I just want to hear people rapping. I don't need to hear any crazy stories or, I can put this on when I'm in that mood to just, and that's what I kind of like about this album. Well, kind of like and dislike. I feel like a lot of these tracks are really short. Some tracks in particular I was really hoping would be longer because I was really enjoying them. Especially, I want to say Thug Bachata was definitely one of those tracks that I was hoping would be longer because I was really enjoying that beat. And like a minute or almost 2 minutes in, it just stops. And I'm like, come on. But I feel like the one thing about these tracks being short is that you're bound to play songs like you'll end up playing like 5-6 tracks back to back to back because everything's short and it kind of just rolls into the next song, but it all still sounds cohesive. It still sounds well put together. So yeah, man, this album is it's just dope. Favorite tracks, to get into some specifics, the Prototype, which is pretty much the intro, the track right after the intro. Like I said, just a good 90s, just vintage 90s head nodding type of beat. Fly Anakin, he's just going in over that, and it just sounds really well. Thug Bachata, I really love just the vibe of that song. And once again, Anakin he just gets in the pocket and he just goes. But like I said, that's one of the songs I wish was just a little bit longer, man. I could have could give me one more verse, man. I'd have been happy. But the track is still fire though. Faceplant and San Bernardino. This joint is so hard, man. This track goes so hard. I can't even describe. This beat is so dope. And then like Anakin, he has a very like confident like swagger about the way he delivers. Like he raps like he knows he's the man, whether you believe it or not. So I really just like how he felt real confident, real energetic, real boisterous over this track. And then halfway, like I said, the first half of this beat is so good, and then it switches probably about a minute or so in, and it switches to this real just smooth beat, smooth instrumental. And Anakin goes from, like I said, the real hype, energetic, kind of flow, and then he slows it down and just kind of over the second half of this beat. But yeah, Faceplant San Bernardino, if there's one track you listen to off this album, definitely give that one a listen, man. that joint is fire, and the beat switch up was perfect. The track Weed Man, I love this track just because of how smooth the beat is. I mentioned one of my recommendations in one of my earlier, I didn't say earlier podcasts, but one of the last album review podcasts I did. I mentioned Honora's album. Nobody Has to Know. The production on this track reminded me something that would be on that real vintage like 80s R&B, so smooth, except somebody's rapping over it, which is just kind of wild. Like I said, it's beats like these that I'm like, it's crazy to even hear somebody rap over this, and he's managing to flawlessly pull it off with no issue. So I really just love how smooth that track was. Several blunts later, I don't have the track listing in front of me. This track had a feature. Concept Jackson. This track has like kind of the 80s R&B sound, but more of a dance vibe to it. And like I said, my note that I wrote for this song, how Anakin is flowing over these kinds of beats. It's just like, this is supposed to be like a 80s dance R&B track. You're not supposed to rap over this. And Deuce is just in there giving bars, man. And Concept Jackson had a dope verse. And then it's another example where the beat starts off one way. You get this nice, like I said, 80s R&B like dance groove vibe. And then halfway through the track, the beat just switches up. And he goes to this like really minimal instrumental with no drums, and it's kind of just like a vocal sample, and Fly Anakin back on it, back just flowing over this another beat switch up yet again. And those were only a couple tracks. Like really, there isn't any track on here I don't like. Like Breadcrumbs was dope, Scheming and Plotting was dope. Worldwide 2-time Shaq and Penny with Nicholas F. He had some really good bars on that song. Shootouts might be one of the songs I guess that kind of has somewhat of a concept of kind of him just letting people know, like, listen, man, like whatever you're trying to do, whatever you want to accomplish, or just do it. I'm out here in these streets wilding out, being stupid, making terrible decisions. Like if you're out here, you know, if you got a dream, like he literally just says it, and like towards the end of the song he's just kind of like talking to you like, bro, if you got a dream, just go for it, wasting time. But yeah, man, I wish I had like more in-depth things to say, but really, like, this album was just, I just really enjoyed listening to this. Like, it was so dope to just put on. This was definitely a gem. Like I said, I was not really familiar with Fly Anakin. I've heard of Ohbliv. I think I've listened to a couple of his beats before, but like I said, this was just one of those joints where I took a chance and just clicked on a link, and I really enjoyed what I got. So hats off to Fly Anakin and Ohbliv. This is a really good project, really consistent project. Like I said, man, if you just want some nice, you just want to hear some rapping, like some rapping over some really different, like I said, kind of like this lo-fi, raw but jazzy, still hip hop kind of beats, man. This is where it's at. This joint is nice. And I think it's interesting, like coming from Richmond, VA. I'm not even sure Virginia hip hop has a sound, but if it did, I wouldn't think this would be it. But hey, man, it don't matter. This project is really dope. You should definitely give it a listen. Beats and rhymes, bro. Just beats and rhymes done in a very creative and just really good way. Something really just pleasuring to the ear, at least for me to listen to. So shout outs to Ohbliv, shout outs to Fly Anakin. This project was really well put together, and yeah, you guys have gained a fan. You guys have definitely gained a fan. So Ohbliv and Fly Anakin, Backyard Boogie. Definitely give this a listen. I will leave links in the description below so you guys can check that out, and definitely purchase it if you enjoy what you hear. So that was that album, and I will now get into my recommendation, because I'm going to save Infinity Wars for last. So technically I have 2 recommendations because this artist has this album and a podcast that I will recommend. So let's just get to it. Recommendation of the day. Artist is named Young Deuces, and the album is called My Unapologetic Black Thoughts. Before I get into the album, and like I said, it's just a recommendation, so it's not going to be a quick review, even though I did write a lot of notes for this because I really enjoyed it. But just a quick background. Young Deuces is an MC from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's also a host. He's part of a podcast called the Geekset Podcast, which he hosts with Lib and Mr. Bacardi. Just a really dope podcast. Their tagline is like the only podcast that blends hip hop and geek culture into one, and literally like that's what their podcast is. So you'll get conversations of anime, movies, definitely tons of Marvel talk, comic books, video games, all that good stuff, but kind of like with a hip hop, edge and flavor to it. Pretty much these are like the conversations that you would have with your homeboys, pretty much. Like when y'all are in that mode and y'all are talking about comics and, just talking about literally just like nerd and geek stuff. So the podcast is really, really dope, man. It's definitely become one of my favorites. It's in my weekly rotation. It helps me get through my work day. And quick shout outs to Camille from Technical Foul Podcast. I want to say she reposted one of their episodes on the Technical Foul SoundCloud, which is also that's one of sports podcasts to listen to. But she reposted one of their links. I think that's how I found out about them, and I've pretty much been a fan ever since. I didn't even know Milwaukee is like a podcast hub. So if you're trying to find a podcast to listen to, go to the Technical Foul page and just look at their newsfeed. They repost a lot of podcasts. They also repost mine, hinty hint. But they repost a lot of dope podcasts. I found a lot of podcasts to listen to through that page. So shout outs to them. For showing love to other podcasts out here. That's how I found out about the Geekset Podcast. But so that's Young Deuces on the podcast side of things. In terms of the album, like I said, it's entitled My Unapologetic Black Thoughts, and pretty much the title of this album will tell you everything you need to know about this album. It pretty much is what you would think it is. A really just a good look, and from the perspective of a young black male in America dealing with things and observing, just like police brutality and discrimination, racism, the justice system, issues of black love, but I also like that it's not like a defeatist thing. It's not like, it's not just like, it's just a struggle, everything's hard, life sucks. It's kind of, life it's not the greatest, we don't get treated the best, but I think it balances it out with, like we can still get through this. We're not gonna allow this to like crush us and it be the end all be all. Like there's still ways we can fight the system, we can still get around this, we can still pull together, so on and so forth. So I thought it was well balanced in that aspect. But like I said, it's just a real raw and honest look into kind of just the state of black America right now, especially in this Trump climate that we're in. So content wise, it's loaded with that. I guess a quick detour to mention, this album reminded me a lot of, I think I gave him a brief mention on the Texas Dedication podcast I did, but this album reminds me a lot of Killer Colleone's Lorraine Motel album that came out last year. Concepts of, like I said, just the black experience, but delivered in a lyrical fashion over beats that knock. And actually, you know what, I guess let me get into production. Production was done by K-Mel Beats. Beats on here slap pretty good. It's a very, I think, accessible sound. So I think like if you're a fan of mainstream rap, sonically this is something you could get into. The beats slap pretty well, production's pretty good. I'm pretty sure if you put this in the car. Some of these beats are definitely gonna knock, but lyrically, it's definitely just loaded with content, but not like in a preachy kind of way. Like Deuces is definitely rapping on here. Like, don't get it twisted. Bars are definitely part of this album. So you get good bars, you get nice wordplay, you get really good content. But like I said, it's delivered over kind of like that melodic, accessible production. So it really blends the lyrics and the production, I think, blend together very well to make a very good sound for this album. I think pretty much the very first track, Black Thoughts, if you listen to that track, that will give you everything you need to know about this album. If you like that track, that sets this album up perfectly to let you know exactly what you're about to get into. I love the last line, I'm like a racist ass judge giving you niggas bars. So that lets you know, man, what you about to get into when you put this album on. But like I said, man, it's loaded with content. It's detailing the black experience and, you know, through his eyes as he sees it, delivered over just good production. Like I said, good wordplay, good bars. It's a really good project. And quickly, I'll just list off some of my favorite tracks. I enjoyed Black Thoughts, Martin Malcolm, Watch Us, Run of Harriet, Relapse, and Stay With Me. Those are some of my favorite cuts on the album. But really, like I said, most of the tracks, there wasn't really any tracks on here I could say that like I didn't like. Some tracks I like more than others, but a lot of these tracks were really good. I like how he was doing like spoken word pieces at the end of some of these tracks. I thought that was a nice touch. So definitely give this album a listen, man. I will leave links in the description below so you guys can check this out. If you have Spotify, it is on Spotify. I believe it's on iTunes also. So give this a look, man. Young Deuces, my Unapologetic Black Thoughts. That is my recommendation of the day. So definitely give that a look and check out the Geekset Podcast. If you want to hear some geek talk, it's a really, really, really dope podcast. Like I said, it helps me get through the workday. It's a struggle sometimes sitting in the office. You need something entertaining to listen to, and those guys do a good job of keeping me entertained. So shout outs to Young Deuces, shout outs to the Geekset Podcast, dope album and dope podcast. So you guys should definitely give that a look. All right, spoiler time. If you have not seen Avengers: Infinity Wars, it is time for you to exit the building. We're about to go in. So yeah, you gone yet? You out of here? All right, yeah. All right. Now the rest of us can talk. All right, so I saw Infinity Wars twice, and it was funny because I feel like the impact of this movie didn't hit me until like the next day. Like, I watched it, I was like, man, this is really good, but like I didn't dwell on it too much. And then I woke up the next day, and then like I kept just replaying scenes from that movie in my head, especially the last scene where everybody disappeared after Thanos snapped his fingers. And I was like, oh snap, I really watched that. Like, everybody, he killed everybody's gone. And I was like, oh snap, I need to go watch this again. I'm feeling some kind of way right now. So I went back on a whim. I saw it the Thursday it came out, and then I went again that Sunday and saw it. And yeah, man, this joint was fire. I don't even know where to start, man. It's so many. I have a few gripes with this movie, but they're very minor. I'll just start with things I like, because that's a lot. This movie did a really good job of giving everybody screen time. I don't think people, as somebody who writes, I was really impressed with how well they were able to. I felt like mostly everybody had a moment of screen time that was pretty good, and it didn't feel like it was leaning too far towards one person and other people like weren't getting enough. Like, I felt like it was really well balanced to where everybody got a chance to shine somewhat during the movie. So that was really impressive, I thought, to give people to be able to fit that many major characters in one movie and everybody still have adequate time to shine. All meanwhile, we're unfolding Thanos' story, which also was done really well. But I saw a lot of people saying like, oh, like Thanos should have had a solo movie or something so we know his background. But this was kind of Thanos' movie almost. Like, it wasn't too in-depth of a look, but you got enough of it to get a sense of how he somewhat became how he is. You got the chance to see how he and Gamora first met, where slaughtering the whole village. He keeps her alive. So I thought that was really good. Just how well everybody was able to share screen time. I guess moving on to Thanos, man. Josh Brolin's winning right now, man. Dude is Thanos, Cable. We got Sicario 2 coming out in June or July. That's gonna be probably really, really dope. So Josh Brolin, man, he's winning in life right now. But he was really, really good as Thanos. I feel like Marvel's on a good trend right now, and not even just other superhero movies, but other movies in general should take note. I think Marvel knew they struck gold with Killmonger, with that kind of villain, and I think they did the same with Thanos, where it's not enough to just have a villain be, I'm almighty and powerful, I'm just here to be evil. Like, that's it. Like, you gotta add some depth and just something to hold on to with these characters. And I thought they did a really good job with Thanos of doing that. Well, you kind of get to see that. I mean, Thanos he's definitely a villain, but he has his own reasons and motivations for doing things. Albeit, I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna agree with him, but at least like there's some kind of method to the madness, where his whole thing is like, there aren't enough resources for us to all live together because we're just gonna destroy everything. So his logical solution is, bro, I gotta wipe out like half of the population, or we're not gonna stay alive. And I mean, and you kind of saw it with his home planet Titan, how it was once a prosperous place, and then it just kind of became, you saw the movie, it became trash. So you kind of get why he thinks the way he does. It's definitely extreme, but like it makes some kind of sense. So in that way, you can be like, all right, you're kind of wilding right now, trying to kill everybody, but at least I get why you're doing what you're doing. And small things like that can turn just a decent villain to a really good one. So I thought that was awesome. And it was really to see, I guess, to add on about the intricacies of him being a villain. I didn't really notice until somebody else pointed it out to me. Thanos kind of, in a way, took it easy on them. He could have killed everybody. He literally only set out to do his mission. I'm going to wipe out half of the universe, and I'm going to go back home, and I'm going to chill out. And that's exactly what he did. He gets all the Infinity Stones. He snaps his finger. Goodbye. I'm going home. Because we all know in that last fight, Thanos could have easily killed everybody. Like, he could have bodied everybody. And he did exactly what he said he was going to do. And he went back home. And he's probably not going to bother anybody until the next movie in 2019. But like, I just thought that was dope. Like, literally, he had a goal in mind. He set out his goal. He did it. He went back home. So Thanos delivered, man. Thanos threw hands. Poor Hulk. He thought he was about to do work in the beginning of the movie. He caught the combo breaker. He caught the work. He put hands on Hulk so bad that he was scared to transform. You know how bad somebody has to put hands on you that you can't even transform? That would be like if somebody beat Goku up so bad that he could no longer go Super Saiyan. And not because he physically, is incapable, because he's afraid. He knows what... He caught PTSD from hands, bro. Like, the beating was so severe that he just wouldn't transform anymore. Just the level of beatdown you have to catch for that to happen is crazy. So Thanos was a great villain, man. He gave everybody the blues in this movie, man. Like, it was wild. It was really wild. I really liked I thought it was cool though how, like, as powerful as he was, there were definitely some of the characters I think he had on some kind of level of respect for. Like, the way poor Iron Man, Tony Stark, he was trying his heart out in this movie, but you know, he can only do but so much. He's catching hands. It's funny how every time Thanos was about to throw a punch and Tony didn't have his helmet on, he hit like that little kid flinch when, like, you're about to get in a fight but you're not really about that life. So I thought that was really funny. But like, he looked at Tony, he was like, I hope they remember you. And I don't think he meant that as a joke. Like, I think he actually, like, on some level had a respect for Tony. And I think he had a respect for Cap too. If you notice in that scene where Cap is, you know, he's trying his heart out to fight back, and he's literally holding on to the gauntlet, trying to, like, bend it backwards and mount an offense. And for a brief second, it is moving, and Thanos kind of gives him this look like, oh, you're actually really strong. Like, you're about this life. And then he floors him with a right hook, and that's it. But like, it was just that little brief moment where he gave him this look, like he kind of acknowledged him, like, some of y'all are actually really, really powerful. So I felt like on some level he had some kind of respect for some of these characters, even though he bodied a lot of them. But Thanos was awesome. In terms of the Avengers, Thor, man, this is the Thor we should have had since, like, the beginning. Like, this Thor was awesome, man. He definitely, I would say, when I first saw it, I thought Doctor Strange was the MVP. Second viewing, I would say Thor was probably the MVP of this movie. I mean, he starts off the movie, man. You watch your brother Loki get strangled and just choked to death. Watch your best friend get stabbed in the heart. Like, he went through a lot in this movie, and dude just trudged on forward, man. And he goes to I forgot the name of the place where they go to make the new weapon. Dude literally takes the force of a neutron star and lives to tell about it, all just so he can get this axe, so he can take Thanos down. Then he comes to the fight. He just starts cleaning house. And it was interesting in the theater. It's kind of funny the 2 days I went to see this, because I feel like the Thursday crowd were all of the diehard, like, really diehard fans, and the Sunday crowd was kind of mixed between, like, diehard fans and then some people who I think just, I ain't gonna say got dragged along, but they kind of just came to see it because of the hype. Because in the Thursday crowd, when I went to see this, boy, when Thor showed up in Wakanda with that axe, but people were bugging out. Like, that was one of those everybody cheers moments. Thor comes in, man. He starts cleaning house with this axe. He's doing work. We all know how the fight with Thanos ended, unfortunately. Literally, if he would have went for the head, he probably would have killed him. But I mean, he took it to Thanos, man. He took it to him. But you know, Thanos got them stones, bro. It ain't gonna work out for you too good. Yeah, Thor was awesome. I really enjoyed another thing they did good with this movie, man. Like, everybody's chemistry, the way the characters bounce off of each other. Like, Thor's banter with all the Guardians of the Galaxy members was on point. It was perfect. Doctor Strange and Iron Man had the exact kind of relationship I thought they would. Both of them really kind of, you know, both of them are kind of pricks in their own way. So I knew they were going to butt heads. I got to give a big shout out to Doctor Strange, though, man. He was holding it down against Thanos for a little bit, man. I mean, you kind of knew he wasn't going to win, but he was doing enough to just keep them afloat and allow them to execute any plans that they wanted to execute, even though, I mean, in the end, ultimately, it didn't work. Or did it? You know, but I thought that was just really dope, man. He ended up, I didn't think he was going to be such an important character in this movie, but man, if it wasn't for him, they probably would have died a long time ago. But yeah, man, Doctor Strange was really awesome in this movie. Held his own against Thanos. Was a real integral part of the story. So definitely appreciated his character. Man, everybody did good. The Guardians of the Galaxy were awesome, even though Star-Lord, man, is getting all emo, and I get it, Gamora died, you feel some kind of way, but the plan was right there, man. The plan was working. Spider-Man was getting his hits in. Everybody's contributing, doing work, and then Star-Lord comes in and does Star-Lord stuff, and Star-Lord does Star-Lord stuff, plan falls apart. But like in terms of just their characters and what they brought to the movie, you knew they were going to bring the humor, and it definitely delivered on their parts. So they were awesome. Spider-Man was cool, man. I'm not like the biggest Spider-Man fan, but it was awesome to see him with his suit come in, man. He's hyped when he gets his suit. Definitely was dope when like the spider leg came out. I felt like he maybe, I guess I couldn't expect him to do more, because he literally, like, they just honored him as an Avenger in this movie. But he definitely contributed to the team, kind of tagging along with Tony, trying to earn his stripes. So yeah, he was dope. Black Panther, of course, didn't get a chance to do too much, but obviously Wakanda played a very important role in this movie. They pretty much had to protect Vision. Oh god, sorry, my computer just did something crazy and I paused. But yeah, they pretty much had to like protect Vision, and we all saw how that turned out. Cap's appearance when he first showed up was really dope. So like everybody did a good job. Poor Hulk, he tried to have his moment, but he got punched out of him. Thanos' goons, who I don't remember any of their names, but they were all pretty awesome when they showed up. Even though I feel like the way they killed the one guy, I don't remember his name, the one that got called Squidward. I feel like the way they killed him was kind of cheap because of how strong he was. But hey, man, the plan is a plan, and it worked out. But yeah, the villains that Thanos had, his goons were pretty beastly when they showed up. Yeah, everything was just really well done, man. The story flowed really good together. I like how this movie literally just from jump, you get thrown right in. And shout outs to everybody. It gotta be clickbait articles of people complaining like, oh, this story didn't make any sense because they didn't reintroduce characters and whatever. Like, bro, if you've been following Marvel for like the last decade, you know that this movie is a culmination of everything we've been watching. So we don't need to rebuild these characters. If you've been watching for this long, you already know what you're getting into. And if you haven't been watching, you shouldn't. That would be like me trying to get into like the Harry Potter series and I only watched the most recent movie and I didn't watch anything from the beginning. Of course I'm not going to know what's going on. Like, do your homework, go back from the beginning. Don't just jump into this movie because you saw Black Panther and now you're mad that he's dead. You got to go back from the beginning just like the rest of us did. Build your way up, then go watch this. So it'll make sense. You'll have everything in context, so on and so forth. But yeah, man. The story was just really well done. Everything flowed really well. Like I said, I like how this movie it didn't waste any time. They went straight in for it. Action started off literally as soon as the movie started. Thanos comes in, he's just bodying everybody. It's so many good things I could say about this movie. Just like from character banner to the way it was written, just to how it flowed. Like I said, to everybody getting, I thought a pretty adequate amount of screen time. Cinematography, just the way some of the locations looked. The CGI for Thanos in this movie I thought was really good. Everything just worked. Like, this movie delivered on every front I hoped it would. Like, I went into this movie hoping that, like, I've waited a long time. And like, I'm not a avid comic book reader, but even back in the day, like, I knew who Thanos was. And my expectation of Thanos is, okay, this is the guy that when he shows up, it gets real. It gets really real. And I definitely got that sense. Like, he starts killing people off top. Like, three important bodies who've been a part of the Marvel Universe for a while. As soon as the movie starts, y'all are gone. Y'all are out of here. And poor Gamora, just the throat. She did a really good job in this movie, too. God, what's the actress's name? Zoe. Is that her? I'm really bad with actress names and actor names. So, the woman who played Gamora, she did a really good job. I really like her part in this story, and her and Thanos' relationship. Kind of sucked how her ending was just literally her getting tossed off of a cliff, but I guess it is what it is. But yeah, her part in the movie I thought was pretty important. And you get to see how, like, it's kind of weird how she kind of hates Thanos, but I still feel like as much as she hates him, there still feels like there's some kind of connection there, and that she doesn't want to have to kill him, but, you know, the way life kind of played out, you know, it kind of, I guess, is what it is at that point. And you could also say the same for Thanos, where he kind of comes across as like this heartless guy, but he kind of really did care about Gamora, as kind of, I guess, crazy as he was. You wouldn't think somebody like him really cared, but, you know, it just kind of shows the dynamic of their relationship. So I thought that was really dope. Yeah, man, this movie was just, I don't know what else to say, bro. This it was so good. It was so good. I'm trying to think of things. Action in this movie, man. A lot of good fights. Like I said, the Wakanda scene with Thor coming in with the axe was dope. I wish Black Panther could have shined a bit more in the fighting. I mean, he did work beating up those, whatever the little monsters was, but I wish he could have done a bit more, but the fighting was still dope. Okoye's scene with Black Widow when they fought, I don't remember the chick's name, the villain that was with Thanos, that fight was really dope. Though I still have this grudge about how Black Widow was like going up against these gods and like still winning fights. I mean, even though Scarlet Witch is kind of the reason they won, because he threw her into like that giant wheel mechanism thing that she got put in. But yeah, like, how is Widow like just hanging with gods like it's nothing? I question that, but it is what it is. But let me get into the things I either didn't like or maybe had somewhat of an issue with, just to be fair, because there were minor things in this movie that kind of bugged me. I don't like how they treat Vision in these movies, man. Why does Vision get dogged so unbelievably bad? Like, they treat him like Yamcha from DBZ. Like, dude, just, I feel like it's not fair. Like, he's definitely a lot stronger than what they're giving him credit for, and he's just getting dogged in this movie, man. Like, I mean, I think he snuck up and he stabbed the one dude from behind, but like, overall, man, Vision was, and then so at the end of the movie where they're like, all right, man, we gotta just blow up this stone because we can't let Thanos have it. So they blow up the stone, he dies, he gets brought back to life only to die again when Thanos uses the time stone to rewind it, and then he pulls it out of his head. It's like, y'all are just overkilling this man. Like, come on. Like, they could have gave Vision, let him have one really go hard moment. And I'm sorry, the little come from behind stab, that don't count, man. Vision should have had a really, like, awesome moment in this movie before they killed him off. He spent this whole movie getting dogged out, and I felt some kind of way. And they've been treating him like this since he's been introduced, man. So I feel some kind of way about that. But R.I.P. Vision. And I guess like my only other gripe with this movie. But I've come to expect this from Marvel because it's just kind of what they do. And I mean, to their credit, it's a bread and butter. It works every time. I was hoping this movie would be a bit more serious in tone than all of the other Marvel flicks. I just feel like the circumstances surrounding this movie and the story, that there wouldn't be a ton of jokes, but there was still a lot of comedy in here. And I mean, on one hand, I'm kind of a hypocrite because I mean, the comedy was good. I think a lot of the jokes hit, a lot of them were well placed. But then there were some moments where it's just like, dude, Thanos is literally about to wipe out the half of the universe. We can't be around here joking and lollygagging around. Like, we're losing people like quickly, and the clock is ticking on him getting these stones, man. Like, it's not a game. So I just felt like, tone wise, like some part of the movie was serious and some parts were joking. I wish it would have leaned more towards the serious side, but that's just a personal taste for me. I enjoy movies that can give me tension, and I think a good part of tension is making things just seem a bit more serious, like really taking into consideration like what's at stake. But like I said, the jokes, they hit when they were thrown out there, so I guess I can't really complain. But that's like I said, that's my minor gripe. Tone wise, I just wish it was a little more serious. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a Marvel movie. They've kind of been doing this since the beginning of kind of throwing in comedy. I mean, it was all over Thor Ragnarok, and it's been over pretty much every Marvel movie. Like, comedy is just a thing they do. And like I said, the movies are written well, so the comedy lands. Just me personally, tone wise, I like things that are a bit more, when stakes are that high, I like it to feel more serious, so that it really builds a lot of tension and I'm really, really invested. But I mean, that aside, they still got it to work, so, you know, what do I know? But yeah, that would be like my two gripes. Like I said, the way Vision gets treated overall in Marvel and in this movie, and then just like tone issues. But I mean, other than that, the movie was still great. And my God, man, the ending scene, oh man, great job on the actor who played Spider-Man, was it Tom Holland? The way he sold that end scene with him and Tony when everybody finally starts disappearing, and he's like almost in tears, like, Tony, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And it's just pulled at a heartstring, bro. Definitely pulled at a heartstring. And Okoye, when she saw Black Panther disappearing, it's just like, y'all are really doing this to me. I didn't, like I said, I'm not an avid comic book reader. I kind of vaguely knew about the story. I knew important people died. I didn't know how many. And side note, man, Colby Covington, UFC welterweight. Dude is a prick to the highest degree. He spoiled half of this movie. And I don't even follow him on Twitter, but somebody reposted him. And I'm not going to put her on blast, but she kind of pissed me off when she reposted it, not taking into consideration that some of her followers probably really were looking forward to this movie. And I didn't see his whole post, but I saw enough to know that Gamora, Loki, and Thor's best friend, whose name is escaping me right now, that they died. But I didn't know about, I scrolled past it before I saw the part about people getting turned into dust. So that part caught me off guard. Like, literally when he got that moment when he flicked his fingers and people started disappearing, I was like, oh no. like, oh, this is real. Spider-Man's gone. I can't even remember everybody. I think everybody from Guardians died except for a raccoon. Black Panther's gone. Bucky's gone. Spidey's gone. Doctor Strange is gone. I forgot. I feel like I'm missing just a lot of people gone. Nate Fury, of all people, he's out of here. So yeah, man, that ending was. It was a really good ending though, and I gotta say this. I wish more movies would also do this. I like when bad guys win. I like when the quote unquote good guys, like, it doesn't go well for them. And that was the reason why I was really looking forward to seeing Thanos in a movie, and why I've just been wanting to see him for so long, because I knew that the good guys don't always come out on top. You got to take some L's, man. And I think that ending just does a really good job of building up to the next Avengers movie, because like now it hit me like, bro, I gotta wait a year to get closure. Like, I need this now. Like, so I enjoy movies where the bad guy gets the upper hand, and I just thought it was dope. Like I said, how he literally carried out his plan. He erased the universe, he left, and he went back and sat back on his hill, and he just stood out and smiled. And I thought that was just really dope. Like, he set out for his mission, and he did it, and it worked. And yeah, man, but that ending where everybody was disappearing, man, that isn't like an iconic scene. I'm really looking forward and wondering how they're gonna lead into this next movie. I need to research the comics. At this point, I don't really care if the comics spoil how they might do it, but I'm pretty sure like Marvel switches things up anyway, so it might not mirror the comics. But I'm really interested to see how this plays out, because I feel like Doctor Strange, when he was telling Tony like this is the only way, like I think he knew that they were gonna lose, and I think like he was okay with it, because like we remember the scene where he was doing his little meditation float. He's seeing all the outcomes, and it's like 41 million outcomes, and he only saw one in which they won. And I think he knew that somehow in order for them to win, that this had to happen. So I feel like he kind of knows what's going on to some degree, or at least has hope that like, all right, this might be where we're in now. Because he told Tony, like, Tony asked him like, why did you give him the stone? He's like, we're in this for the long game, and or the end game. So I think he kind of knows what might be coming around the corner. So I'm just really interested to see how they're gonna build this up to the next Avengers. So we got Captain Marvel coming out next year also. I'm wondering how they're gonna tie her into the story. Obviously, that was her symbol at the end of the movie. And I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not an avid comic book reader. I know she's one of the strongest characters in the Marvel Universe. I don't think she can just take Thanos' head up. So I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how she's going to be that much of a game changer. And from what I'm guessing about her film isn't taking place during now. It's going to be during the 90s to do like her origin story. And I'm going to guess maybe by the end of her movie or her end credit scene, maybe her getting briefed up to date about what's going on currently with half of the universe just disappearing. So I just been researching theories of seeing different characters who could appear. So, you know, of course, Captain Marvel. Will they throw Adam Warlock in there? Will they throw Mistress Death in the next Avengers movie? Like, how is this all going to play out? How are they going to take down Thanos? I'm pretty sure my thoughts. God, what's her name? Gamora's sister. I cannot remember her name. I'm positive she's going to have to play a big role in how they take down Thanos. I feel like she might be the person who deals the death blow, or at least like sets the death blow up, depending on how that plays out. So yeah, Marvel's done a good job of building some anticipation for this next movie, because I'm anxiously waiting. And I think this puts a pretty, I think this makes Captain Marvel's going to have to come through with it, man. Like, following Infinity Wars, Captain Marvel got to come with it, bro. Like, we need to build some excitement. I mean, of course, there's going to be excitement regardless, but I think she needs to hit the nail on the head. She's going to be a part of the Avengers, and we need to be excited about her character. So I hope her movie really, really delivers and gives us something to hold on to. And a final thought, I guess, before I get out of here. Most of my podcasts do not run this long, but I told you I was probably going to be in for the long haul on this one. I was wondering, like, what's the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe now? And because I was thinking, not to say like their run is over, but Infinity Wars is one of those moments where I'm like, I don't think you can top this. Like, once the next Avengers comes out and the Thanos, saga has wrapped up, I don't know where you go after that. I don't know what other villains that can draw people in so much and generate that much interest. Like, I don't know where else you go after that. I almost feel like after the next Avengers, we're going to get a lot of just standalone films, which nothing wrong with that. There's plenty more superheroes to pull from, if you want to go that route. And I'm pretty sure those films will be successful regardless. But I can't think of any, but I could be wrong, because like I said, I'm not an avid comic book reader. I can't think of any other villains other than Doctor Doom. I'm not sure how that works out. I can't remember if Marvel owns them again. I can't remember. But like, Doctor Doom would be the only other villain I could think of somebody you could build hype around and get people really excited to see, and like build up another saga for people to look forward to. But so I'm interested to see what they do after this Thanos thing wraps up. Because like I said, we spent 10 years building up to this, so I'm interested to see what comes after. Because like I said, I don't know how you top Thanos. I don't know how you build 10 years to this one moment. It delivers. I'm assuming the next Avengers and hopefully Captain Marvel will deliver. So after that wraps up, like, what are we doing next? Like, what's the next big thing? Or is there a next big thing? Or are we just going to get a lot of like one-offs? So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I'm pretty sure, man, Marvel's been on a roll. They know what they're doing. So we'll see what they got lined up next in the next couple of years. We'll see how that all turns out. But yeah, man, Infinity Wars, fire, just straight fire. Everything just well done. Characters are awesome. Action's really good. Everything flows really well. Delivered on the villain that all of us have been looking forward to. They hit the ball out the park. And poor DC, man. I love y'all. I'll be caping for y'all, but y'all ain't catching up to this. Stick to the animated movies. That's where y'all got Marvel beat. I think y'all just need to pour all your resources and time into the animated movies, because the live actions, man, they're hit or miss. They are hit or miss. But Marvel, in terms of live action, man, they got this on lock and key. But yeah, man, that's all I got for Infinity Wars. Awesome movie. As just a Marvel fan in general, it's been awesome to watch how all of these movies have played out and led up to this moment, and it delivered with flying colors. So, quick recap: J. Cole, KOD, Ohbliv and Fly Anakin, Backyard Boogie, Avengers Infinity Wars, and the recommendation, Young Deuces, My Unapologetic Black Thoughts. Give all these projects a listen, and definitely watch Infinity Wars if you have not. We shouldn't be listening to this because I'm spoiling it, but if you stuck around anyway, maybe you don't care about spoilers, give Infinity Wars a watch. It is well worth the time. Just awesome movie. And give these projects a listen. I'll leave all relevant descriptions in the link below. And as always, you can listen to this podcast on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes. If you're on iTunes, please rate, subscribe, leave a review. You can also listen to us on Google Play. You can hit me up on Twitter at Serial Sensei. Send questions to Dojotalkpodcast at yahoo.com. And hit us up on Facebook at the Dojo Talk Podcast Facebook page. And that's all I got for today. Thank you guys for listening, riding with me. Episodes will now be back coming out at a regular fashion. We took our little week off, but we back in here. So content is coming. Thank you guys for listening. And until next time, I will catch y'all later. Peace.